Here. All right. How are you doing? Okay, so we have some things to go over today. I will be reading from Proverbs 6. Okay, starting at verse 16. Okay, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. And when I was highlighting this, it had me look up something about surety because the chapter starts with warnings against folly, and it separates the verses, well, it separates it within like 3 parts. It says these people that God was warning against is the surety, the sluggard, and the troublemaker. And so the verses I just read from was like the troublemakers, you know what I'm saying? And so I had looked up what a surety was, right? And there are 2 common types of use for that word. And there are surety bonds, which is a 3-party agreement common in construction and licensing to guarantee a job gets done properly. The other is legal and court sureties. It says a person who posts a financial pledge or bail to guarantee an accused person will show up in court. And the etymology of this word was very common with certainty, and they both yield from Latin securitas or securitas, from securus. And it says the definition, it says the state of being sure, such as sure knowledge. It says certainty, confidence in manner or behavior, assurance. And so something about this like made me think of like senses, right? Because we all know there are 5 senses, right? 5 main senses. But it was something about when God was saying there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Something about senses stood out because it says, okay, haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. So on the notes, I ended up going to, from the notes, it says this 7-fold catalog of what the Father hates revolves around the inner heart. Ugh, that is so good. Okay, so it took me to Proverbs 2, 9 through 11. And that says, then you will understand what is right and just and fair, what is right and just and fair, every good path. It says, for wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. So on the notes for that, it says, the heart is the essence of the self, and the spring from which a person's life proceeds, right? So again, I was thinking about the senses. So God said, go to Proverbs 4:23, and it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And something about spring, right? My name is April, so spring and flowing, of water. And so for the notes for that, it says, your heart, for everything flows from it. It says, the reference to the heart stands at the center of the poem. The body parts mentioned before the heart in verse 23 function as receptive organs, the ear, the eye. But those mentioned after the heart are controlled by it. The mouth for speaking, eyes for keeping direction, for preventing one from stumbling, and for remaining on the right path, and feet for traveling on the way of wisdom. Now, we see, like, the ears, the eyes, what I'm saying, the mouth, sense of taste or whatever. But, what I found interesting was how it repeated. It said that it talked about the ear and the eye before the heart. But then it has the feet, and it says, and feet for traveling on the way of wisdom. And it says, eyes for keeping direction, for preventing one from stumbling. So I'm thinking God is saying intuition. God is saying third eye. Oh my gosh. So my revelation, what I feel like God is saying, is that these seven detestable things are the things that God hates. And going into, what I'm saying, a new shift, a new timeline. These are the things in which we need to be weary of, and people that we need to be weary of. And I'm going to repeat that. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Now, let's look at senses, right? So we know we have 5 senses, right? Sense of taste, sense of smell, sense of touch, being able to hear and being able to see, sight, right? Now, when I was asking God, okay, so from these 7 detestable things, I believe God gives us 7 senses. And so I was asking God, what are those other 2 senses? This is what I got. Travel and direction. And I'm going to read it again from the note from Proverbs 4:23. Well, I'm going to read Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And it says, the reference to the heart stands at the center of the poem. The body parts mentioned before the heart in verses 23 function as receptive organs, the ear and the eye. Just like if you hear somebody that you love talking bad about you, it's going to make you feel some type of way. If you see somebody cheating on you, you see somebody in your bed, with your husband or whatever, it's going to make you feel the type of way. Whatever, Or even tragedy, tragic things, tragic moments in life. You know what I'm saying? And it says, those mentioned after the heart are controlled by it. The mouth for speaking. So, you know what I'm saying? What we say, what we do, it comes from the heart. You know what I'm saying? We don't have opinions about things for no reason. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Eyes for keeping direction, for preventing one from stumbling, and for remaining on the right path. I believe there God is saying that we all have psychic ability in some way, shape, or form. We all can see with our third eye or with our intuition. That God gives us the ability to be able to see. You know what I'm saying? Things forecoming. You know what I'm saying? And it says, and feet for traveling on the way of wisdom. And so when I was asking God about travel and direction, I feel like the travel is important because we can tap into rooms, you know what I'm saying, that you haven't even been in. You can take up space in rooms you've never even been in. Because some of us have that ability to be able to travel without ever moving, right? And then the direction is the same thing as the intuition. It's the same thing as the eye. Excuse me, God said no. The direction is to know where to travel to. Where to know that you are needed. Like they say, go where you're celebrated and not tolerated. Well, you have to be aware of these things, right? In order to know where to go. And you have to know sometimes when God is calling you to stay in places that you're not celebrated. Because direction is supposed to come from God, not about how we feel, not about always how people feel about us. So that's what I got for you right now. Again, that was Proverbs 6 verses 16 through 19. It was also Proverbs 4:23 and Proverbs 2 9 through 11. Love you. Peace.